what I wanted the audience to do, because there's so many high-powered coaches and athletes and people here, and even Matt Bazeron showed up. Matt, good to see you. But look, you still qualify for a free steak. Don't worry about it. So y'all think of a little story, or think of a little something that, because obviously, if you look around, we have 5 cameras set up. And Stan deserves, I mean, it's not that he didn't have enough airtime when he was at HTV, but this time the airtime is going to be about Stan. So we're going to say a few stories, because what a great job Stan has done over the years. Can you imagine the kids, and I see Coach Gano, and Coach Gano coached me and Harry. We had the privilege of having Coach Gano, but there wasn't a whole lot of media coverage when you coached. If you made it on the paper, you were lucky. Harry, who was that guy that walked around? Who's that? The DUIs. Yeah. Who was that guy that used to follow us around with the tape recorder? Here's Joey. Joey Kennedy. There you go. Hillary knows that. Hillary's the trivia buff. So Wayne Cordray, the Canadian music machine. So when you think about what Stan has done for local kids, I mean, really think about it. And the tapes and the games and the shows that these kids can take with them the rest of their life. And one day when they're sitting at a table, convince their grandkids that they were pretty good athletes. Stan, you've had one heck of a ride, brother. One heck of a long ride. So we're going to let you eat, but in a few seconds, we need some stories about Stan, okay? Stan, trust me. Let me give you a precursor. Whatever anybody says, I'm going to personally be editing this show. So I promise you I'll give you a little leeway if somebody wants to stretch it just a little bit. So Keith, I see you chomping at the bit to come up here, Pop. Keith Whiteside.
So, you know, I've been doing this a little while, not as long as Stan, but again, who has? So Stan and I had the opportunity to be able to do different things. I was telling the story a minute ago. Several years ago, doing self-help, I have a tendency to want to do lots of things, and y'all know I'm quiet and shy. Martin said, Keith, you got to stay in your lane. I need you to do this. Well, all of a sudden, somebody didn't want to do as many sports each week, so Keith had to do something else. So I had to learn how to do sports. And I know about sports, but I can't talk about sports. So I did 2 things. I watched Harry McCullough, and I watched Stan Gravois. And it made a huge difference to me, because I can tell you some of the things that happened for me later on would have never been that way had I not done that. So my favorite Stan Gravois story is in the press box, where the Saints are playing the Philadelphia Eagles. And if you know anything about the Saints, Hillary introduced me to this. Mr. Sal is this old Italian guy, and he runs the press box. He's the man. Well, he was the man until Sal Palantonio walked in. And Sal Palantonio is sitting right in front of Stan and I. And Mr. Sal said, boys, what were y'all doing? Stan and I didn't have a seat, because Philadelphia brought lots of people to come to this game. So he said, stay right here. Don't move. I'm going to find you a seat. And lo and behold, we had 2 seats sitting right behind Sal Palantonio. Good news, bad news. Good news, Saints won. Bad news, we got to see all of Sal Palantonio's text messages, because he was texting out. And in about the 3rd quarter, he said they got their hands on their hips and their heads down. I think this game is over. Well, if y'all remember that game, the game wasn't really over. And I learned something about Stan Gravois that day that I'll never forget. The Saints get a pick with about 1.5 minutes left. And the D-back that makes the pick decides that he's going to run. Stan jumps up and goes, go down, go down, go down. I have never seen Stan so animated in my life, even on TV. The coach came out in him. He said, nothing pisses me off more than somebody who's got the game won and they're not going to go down and win the game and they're going to risk a fumble. The coach, always the coach. Stan, thanks for the memories. Thanks for all the years. I appreciate it.
Coach McCormick said he was done, because that's that South Terrebonne pipeline that I can't wait to tap into.
I'm allergic to speaking in public. I got a couple of great stories about Stan. Most of them are PG-13 rated and some are a little bit more, but I'm going to keep the G-rated ones out there. Every Friday night after the football games, no matter who we were playing, we would hurry up and we would get back into the coach's office because we didn't want to break down the film. We wanted to hurry up and turn on HTV and be able to watch the great Stan Gravois. Okay. So at the beginning of the season, we start talking. Yeah, I wonder if Stan has his cell phone on, because he would do the shows live. I don't know, let me find out. So I'd pull it out, call it up. All of a sudden, it'd start ringing. Oh, God. It was Stan's face when that phone started ringing on. It turned 8 shades of red, and you could see he grabs it and he looks and he goes, and he puts it back in. And then after that, every Friday we would try to call, but he'd have it set on silent. It was going straight to voicemail, straight to voicemail. Another story was when Stan was teaching gifted art at South Terrebonne, and I used to always mess with him. He was there forever. You know how the art South Terrebonne, they never want to leave. And he was there forever. And he was talking about going to the parish art. And they drive around to the different high schools and teach the different kids at the different high schools. And he would always talk about it. And he would always talk about going to do something different. And I would always tell him, you ain't got the. Well, Stan walks in one morning, I go to his classroom and he looks at me and he goes, I'm taking that job. So on his last day, I bought him a flask and I had engraved in it, I got the. And hopefully he still has it. Hopefully he still has it. No, but on a serious note, Stan was one of my coaches when I was in high school. And when I first got hired on, I was lucky enough to coach with him again. And me being that young coach, you want to be on that sideline for every game. And we had a coach that wanted me up in the press box, at the beginning of the season. And I was kicking myself in the butt because you love being on the heat of the battle. You love being on that sideline, smelling the sweat and the dirt and the mud. But being up there in the press box with Coach Gravois, because he was also, I think he was coaching receivers at the time. Yeah, receivers at the time. And he taught me so much on what to look for up in that press box and what to look for, what kind of bubbles are the defense giving you, how the offense is trying to outnumber you from one side to the other. And being a young coach to be able to learn that up there, ever since then, when I would break down video, I break down video with the stuff that he taught me for that season when I was up in that press box with him. And I just want to thank you for all of that. Being a mentor as a teacher and a mentor as a fellow coach. I just wanted to thank you.
Coach Randy Bouquet.
Really tough to try to follow up David McCormick, but I'm going to give it a shot. I unfortunately didn't witness this firsthand, but you guys have to hear this story. I'm trusting that my South Terrebonne coaches are going to fill in anything if I make any mistakes. Evidently, it was a big game. It was a big game at the Swamp, and Stan was coaching the Deep Snappers. And if any of you guys know Stan Gravois, if you tell Stan Gravois, we need you to put the trash bags in the garbage cans, or he's going to go research how to put trash bags in the garbage cans. He's going to go research which trash bags are the best to put in the garbage cans, where the garbage cans need to go for optimal use. That's y'all know, if y'all know Stan, he is going to get it right. So evidently, I believe the young man's name was Gavin. Gavin was snapping or working on it. Special teams is out. South Terrebonne's got their ritual down. They got their routine down. And so it was a big game. The Swamp was packed. They had all kind of fans out there. And Stan is working facing the stadium, facing all the fans, and he's working with the snapper. And he's trying to get him to understand that, hey, this is really important. This snap has to be pinpoint. It's got to be fast. It's got to be on the money. So he says, you know, whenever the punter calls for the ball, you got to zip it there as fast as you can. You understand? And he's like, yes, sir. So Stan is positioning himself between the snapper and the punter, and he is coaching his tail off. He's getting ready, critical special teams. And everybody in the stands has the pleasure of watching everybody in addition to watching Stan. Well, evidently Stan said, okay, the cadence is going to be, we're going to keep it simple. It's just going to be, you know, hut. And so when he says hut, well, Gavin's down in his stance, and he is listening to his coach. Well, he hears hut. And as he's been coached, he zips that football back there. And from what I understand, it hit Stan exactly there with a very loud, echoing thud. And also, from what I understand, Coach Gravois, all he could do was buckle and fall. And like they say, everybody in the stand saw it. And again, if you guys know Stan, which is my tie-in to HTV, those of you that really know Stan from back in the day, David McCormick and Coach Labatt and Bob and all those guys, you know, and I'm sure, you know, Coach Waggus back. Wasn't it crazy when I heard that Stan was going to be on HTV? I'm like, Stan. And they're like, you know, Coach Gravois. I said, there's no way. Because, you know, I know the guy that I know, that I coached with, taught with, and everything else, he never wanted attention. Stan could make the best videos you've ever seen. And he's probably still got some copies at South Terrebonne. Between myself and McCormick, the big clowns, and so on, we made some absolutely hysterical, historic, motivational, pep rally, silly videos. And Stan was always behind the camera and did an amazing job. But he never wanted the camera on him. And oh my God, he never wanted to be embarrassed. He never wanted anybody to like clap or even acknowledge him. I mean, you guys that know Stan, that's Stan Gravois. So when they said, yeah, he's doing HTV, no way, absolutely. So it's just stunning to me that he did that. And you all know, I mean, of course, he did a great job. I'm going to go one more, and I'm going to let somebody else go. I get the job at HL. Two things. I'm in his room in South Terrebonne, and I said, man, I want to change the whole culture. I want to, you know, I want to go in there. I want to turn it around. I want to do all this stuff. I said, man, I need a logo. I said, I don't like that Florida State stuff they got. I want to change it. Stan said, well, what you looking for? I said, man, I need something that shows, you know, power and strength. And he says, hang on. I kid you not. The dude gets a pencil, gets a scratch sheet of paper and scribbles. Maybe 3-4 minutes tops. He goes, how about this? The logo that they're using again now with the big arrowhead and the feather is exactly what he penned. He said, yeah, maybe you could put some blood coming off the feather a little bit to kind of show that. And I'm like, he goes, is that okay? I was like, I guess. I can't draw a stick person, you know? Okay, so fast forward. Stan, can you help me out at HL? Please. Just help me out. He goes, man, what you need? I said, help me out with quarterbacks and just be in the booth at night. Just talk to me. He's like, you know what? I'm going to do that for you right now. I said, man, thanks so much. So, of course, quarterbacks were perfectly coached, right? They were ready to go. We weren't very good. We didn't have a whole lot of, you know, kids and so on. Anyway, so we're playing. We're losing. We're playing some team, Destrehan, maybe you heard of them. And, you know, they've got a few athletes over there. And so Stan's on the headset. And we're on defense. And they're running, you know, an ISO or whatever. They're running a running play. And Stan goes, oh, my God. Bruh, who is 95? He is flipping horrible. Oh, my God. That guy's running right at him. I mean, he's got to do one thing. I said, Coach, did he go outside? What's going on? I mean, that guy's horrible. 2 plays later. Coach, who's number 42 at your linebacker? Jesus Christ, that guy is horrible. Oh, my God. I said, Coach, look, I appreciate that. I really do. Coach, I got nobody else, all right? I got nobody else. That's the best I got, Coach. I'm sorry he's so bad. I'm just, man, you got to get better kids. Okay, Coach, I'll see what I can do at HL Bourgeois. I'll try to get better, Coach. And just like David said, I'm going to wrap it up by saying this. I came in as a young coach, and Stan was that mentor. Stan was that guy. Before school, we'd sneak up to his room, and we talk, coach talk, and we would just try to learn. We would just want to learn about what it is to be a teacher, what it is to be a coach, and what it is to be a mentor. And Stan was an absolute amazing mentor, an amazing friend, and he is just a professional, and he's a blessing to everybody that meets him and everybody that knows him, and he's been a blessing to this area for many, many years, even before HTV. God bless you, Stan. I love you.
All right, I want to tap into that coffee shop crowd, and I see Matt Bergeron. Oh, you going to the bathroom, Matt? Okay, that's what I thought. And I want to tap into Mr. Dale Carnegie, too, because Coach Gano, what was shocking? Like you talked about at Terrebonne General's Hall of Fame, that a lot of the young athletes don't know the guys that paved the way. Probably true with some of the younger coaches, don't know some of the older coaches that, and I say older with respect, Coach Gano. Now, Coach Gano was me and Harry's coach, and Hillary, and all in high school. And Mike Fake was on that last state championship baseball team. Mike, that kills me to say that, but y'all deserve it. Y'all were a really good team. So I'm going to bring Coach Gano up. Coach Gano, when I first started broadcasting football games at HTV, I called my old coach. He said, well, who's going to be doing the game with me? I said, I'm going to be doing the game, and my brother Mike's going to do the game. So Vanderbilt was playing Lutcher. Guy from Vanderbilt, fair catch on the 4-yard line. Boy, Coach, if we'd have done that when we were playing for you, instead of letting the ball go in the end zone, what would have happened? And boy, he goes on and on. He's being tough, And my brother Mike, it's a classic. He goes, well, Coach, you know the old saying, hind play is better than forward. I pulled my headsets off. I walked out the press box. I could not get my composure for 15 minutes. My brother Mike's asking me, what did I say? I wrote it on a piece of paper. Hind play is better than. He goes, no way. He kept the broadcast going for 15 minutes and never missed a lick. Mr. Dale Carnegie, Coach Brian Gale.
I think poor Mike gets reminded of that every year. Every year. And you continue to put it on video. I'm going to admit to you guys, I just met Stan Gravois for the first time, I'm going to say back in February or March. I was with Matt Bergeron, Ted Bergeron. Stan was with him going to Nichols baseball game. And I really enjoyed my conversation with Stan because I've heard so much about him. My younger daughter works at Terrebonne General, and she just raves about him. So I said, I'm anxious to meet this guy. Watching him on HTV, I was just thinking back. I said, how great this would have been back in the 70s, when I was coaching at that time, played in the 60s, but to have that kind of coverage. My grandchildren were telling me how much they look forward to watching it on a Friday night. All these kids get together and want to see themselves. So I really don't have any funny stories about Stan, but just from the standpoint, Stan, that you are so caring, and that comes across on everything you do, and how much those athletes, and I think parents too, really appreciate it and really respect you for it. So good luck as you move on from here. It's been great getting to know you.
And I'm going to come back to that coffee shop group, and I am going to give Mike Fake a chance to come up here and talk about that team. But one thing that I saw Stan get excited about over the years And it really escalated over the last few years was Nickel State football. And I remember I was telling Coach Reba, I remember when I did the first Sonny Jackson show, Coach Jackson I was filming back in those days. He would make me go on the field, follow him around as a coach and show him getting into it, getting excited. And after the game, he'd tell me, we need to attract people to Nickel State. So part of that is a show. I got to put on a show in the sidelines, and he did a great job of doing that. Over the years, a few ups and downs, but then Coach Rebo comes to Nichols and steps up the program quite a bit, and I saw it in Stan, because I would watch pretty much as a fan, not as an owner. I'd watch him as a fan, and I could see that excitement. So we have Coach Rebo here tonight, and Coach, why don't you come up, just say a few words about Stan and that good coverage he's given you over the years.
I thought the athletic director was supposed to do this and do it. Like Coach Gano, I don't have a lot of funny stories about Stan, but I do know this. Professional, class, always well prepared. And I remember when we were coaching against each other when I was at Destrehan. And Richard, you remember I would always go into y'all offices all the time, and man, y'all were just super to me after when I left and came back and started recruiting, and was at Nichols the first time and then came back when I was at UL and doing the recruiting. And the way that y'all treated me and you treated me was just incredible. So I do respect what y'all did. I know this, a staff like y'all, I respected from afar the South Terrebonne staff, because y'all have stuck together, and the thing that y'all did and the bond that y'all did, and I know where it started, okay, and the guys that were there. So I really do respect that and what y'all have done, and I respect you. And now coming back as the head coach, you have been class always. I can see now, and now hearing the stories, I can't tell the stories because I wasn't on the staff with y'all on those Friday nights or Saturday mornings after games. I do know this, Stan. I'll have a couple stories from your godchild that I usually hear in the morning. Dr. Porsche, I'm sure he might tell a couple of those that I can't tell also. But I do appreciate you. And when I came back as the head coach at Nichols and the things that you have done, and you are always so well prepared, you know exactly what you're talking about, and the coverage that you give us and the things that you have done for Nichols State University and this whole area, man. I just want to thank you, and I respect that all you do, man. I appreciate
it. Did Richard Curlin leave? He's here? Where's Richard at? I want to get Richard up, because look, I remember we used to pull that state championship game in the parades, running the video of it all the way through home, because they shared the champion. Two teams won that year. But that was the famous game where the elevator got stuck in the dome, and Lonnie Thibodeau got stuck. We were hoping he would get stuck for about 4 quarters, but it was only 1, and Gene Gano did the game. But Coach Curlin, so well respected in this area. And Coach, you got the mic.
I'm going to maybe correct a few things that some of the stories that were told, some of them get embellished or added on to or whatever. Randy, that was a Thursday practice that happened at, all right? It was a Thursday practice, and I know it was better. But we were at the very end of the practice right there, okay? And, the cheerleaders and the dance team, they're waiting to come on the field and everything else. So they're standing on the sideline, and I have no idea. Was it Gavin? I have no idea why Gavin snapped that ball. Oh, yeah. I mean, that was probably one of the best snaps he ever had, And Stan did not see it coming whatsoever and hit him about as perfect as you can. And you ever remember the old laugh-in show? Remember the guy on the tricycle, and he would run into, some of you guys probably not old enough to remember that, but he would run into something and he would just fall over? That's exactly what Not a sound, nothing. It like paralyzed him. He just. They fell down. I mean, about half of them were on the ground laughing so hard. And I know it hurt. Oh, my God. I go back a long time with Stan. A couple of us call him Earl. You got to go back a ways, huh, Eric? To call him Earl. I don't know. That's his name. That's a backstory. That's his name. Second thing is Keith talking about Stan in the press box. Stan on the sideline, I can remember one game, I forgot who we were playing, but I mean, he just goes off on this official, you know. I mean, he starts, you the worst, you know, I mean, he just went up and down this guy. And I looked at him and I said, you know, Stan, that's the opening kickoff. That's the opening kickoff, you know. I mean, it's a little too early to get that ramped up, you know. The thing a lot of people don't know about Earl is that he has some of the most sensitive balls of any person I know, okay? And I don't know if it's from that incident or what, but this goes back a long time too. We used to play basketball in the gym, all right? All us coaches would get together, sometimes after a practice or sometimes when we didn't have a practice on that day or whatever. And I would end up guarding Stan. Stan, a lot of people don't realize this, was one of the best three-point shooters that I've ever seen. I mean, if you gave him any space, I mean, he was going to make every time. And so I knew he wasn't ever going to come, into the lane. You know, he was just going to stay out there and he's going to shoot three-pointers. So I figured out I got to find a way to guard this guy, because I'm too lazy to go out there and try to get up on him or anything like that. So I would just fake like I was going south of the border, and Stan would automatically just he couldn't help it. I mean, I don't know how many times I've faked that move right there, and every time. But the thing was, after a couple of years, he got pretty good at shooting like this. Yeah. But now, on a serious note, it's just a few people that you'll probably have in your lifetime that are good enough friends where you might not see them for a few months, but then when you do, it's like, you could have seen them yesterday. Didn't make any difference, and I count Stan as one of those, and a few other guys in this room too, but I think you feel the same way. Thank you.
Speaking of three-point shots, Hillary Domain was one of those guys that, he could fill up a three-point shot, but then after he'd shoot it, we all going back to the other side of the court. And Hillary's still over there where the three-point shot is, waiting for the next three-point shot. No defense at all. But Hillary does a show each morning, and I see that table over there. I see Richard and Bobby and all them over there. And Hillary's always has different guests on. So, Hillary, come on up here. We got some time. We'll wait for you to get up here. It's a partial roast, folks. Okay. By the way, he used to lick his fingers before he shot the three. Remember that, Harry? You knew when Hillary was doing that, the ball was going up.
Oh, yeah, that's exactly right. It was going up. Well, difference, Stan and I both shot a lot. He probably made more. I am to blame for him doing this stuff. I am to blame. I got him involved in this when he quit coaching and was working in the main office, and got him involved on, as he, so eloquently says, the B team. Bobby and I were doing one game, and we decided to add a second game on radio, and Stan had the privilege of working with a guy. I'm not going to name his name because I'm going to tell a story about him, so I really don't want to name his name. Yeah, Mike Benura, who cares? Anyway, Stan is doing a game with Mike Benura. And during the game, Mike was just saying, man, good-looking crowd here tonight, good-looking crowd. It could be an Ellender game with one fan, okay? Good-looking crowd. Mike was talking about the parents that were coming up, the good-looking parents that were coming up the stairs. Every time he saw one, he was like, good-looking crowd here tonight. And still did it for ages and ages. Stan came in. Bobby and I have done broadcasts on radio for years. I did it with Don Schwab. I did it with Tommy Boudreau. For those who know Tommy Boudreau broadcast a game in a stance like he was going to tackle somebody. He had the headsets on, and he was like this in the press box. He was nuts. Stan is the most analytical person, and you all know that. You were telling stories about it. Doing a game, he's just amazing as far as his vision of the game itself. Bobby and I do the game where, laughing and joking. Bobby's answering the phone more times than he is doing color, talking to everybody in the world. But Stan is just so professional when he does it. And then to, this theme that you guys have talked about. Also, there is no way, I've been doing this for a long time. I enjoy the heck out of it. I don't hold a candle to what he did on Friday Night Sports. You took that to a level, and these coaches know it. When they're talking about they watched it, the kids watch it, the coaches watch it. You took it to a level because of this, because of how much you care about the educational system in this area, not just the sports, the kids themselves, the parents. You have told the story many times. You said it last week on the radio show, how football in high school sets the tone for your entire academic year, not just your sports year. That if football is successful, because it's so high profile and everybody's so excited, that the school becomes successful. You've talked about that many times. It makes a lot of sense, but you've taken that attitude and that ability to reach out to people and have them know you care about it. As I think what Randy and David and all of them said, when they saw you on Friday Night Sports, they knew that it was all from the heart. That you wanted to do that for the kids, for the parents, for the community. And it's a lot of people that don't do it for those reasons. And you never took yourself seriously, even though you're a serious person. You didn't take the success that you had with that seriously. You were always the same, always a professional, and that's why, thank God, I have you on every Friday morning to talk about high school sports, to keep things going and keep things, in the community where people continue to understand how important it is in the community. And, the stuff you do with Tim and JT and Nichols and, the other crazy stuff we do on the show. Last week we had just an amazing conversation that started off from just a little bit. Stan and I and Richard had a conversation about the problems that are going to occur with the transfer portal in college, with a marriage of paying the players. What a nightmare that is going to be. And we had a conversation for 45 minutes on there the other day, and his knowledge of athletics just lent so much to it. He does a great job. I could tell Stan stories forever. He's just a really good guy. The only person I've ever had in the booth that actually takes the game seriously. No one else does. Well, yeah, but Tommy was crazy while taking it seriously. So it worked both ways. Well, I don't know. I'm the nut who tries to, keep stats and everything at the same time. So, but it's fun. It really is. I've enjoyed our relationship work-wise over the past couple of decades, but more than that, I've appreciated you as a friend, and thank you always being there when I need you.
I'm going to call up, I'm going to get Mike Fockett to talk about, because, of course, Stan's relationship with Terrebonne General and also on HTV, and while Mike's walking up, and it just spurred my memory. In all the years that Stan did the show, we get a few calls here at HTV. Y'all put my son on TV, and I don't appreciate it. Well, what did your son do? Well, he sold 3 grams of cocaine, and he got arrested. Are you kidding me? You're actually going to try to stop me from putting that on TV? But in all fairness, Stan, I never got a phone call. In all the years of doing high school sports, and you can slip up and really affect a high school player's life. But he never did. So kudos to you for that. Mike, come on up.
Got to get away from these South Terrebonne stories, okay? Right, Hill? All right. I don't have anything funny to say about Stan, because Stan's not that funny. Okay. But my first encounter with Stan was probably through the high school baseball all-star game. Matt, remember, I think you and I and Stan and some of those guys, Bobby, he had a committee that put on this high school all-star game. I really didn't know Stan. I knew of him, I just didn't know him well. But through the course of that, of dealing with that event and working with Stan and seeing just how all you guys talked about him, just in that one little aspect of a high school all-star baseball game, I realized that this guy is truly a gem for these kids in Terrebonne Parish and the surrounding areas around Lafourche, St. Mary, everywhere. So I'm served on the Terrebonne General Hospital Board, and I guess when the school board decided to eliminate the program Stan was involved in, it was perfect timing for us, because we had been talking about creating a mechanism to work with a lot of the high school kids in the area, and what ultimately became our Community Sports Institute. And being on the board, and I was probably one of the only sports guys that were on the board, our CEO, Phyllis Peoples, came to him and she said, "We got the program started, we got it funded, but we need somebody to run it." And she said, "Do you have any idea of anybody? Because I don't know. I have no clue." I said, "Yes, I do. As a matter of fact, it couldn't have been better timing." I said, "There's a gentleman in this parish named Stan Gravois." She brought Stan in, and they interviewed, they sat down, and they talked about a vision for where this whole program wanted to go. And it started out mainly with hiring trainers, Brett, guys like that, to work with all the high school coaches, and it has continued to evolve into bigger and better things, and will always keep growing. But I remember about, I don't know, it was probably a month after Stan actually went to work for the hospital, and all of you had said how diligent and how organized and how he is. She called me one day and she said, "If you got anybody else like that, please let me know. It might have been one of the best hires we ever made." So Stan was able to get out of the coaching aspect and working with the kids directly in high school, but came on board at Terrebonne General and has done a phenomenal job. And I know he's, obviously all of you know how well he's done here at HTV, and I'm hoping he never decides to retire from the real job he has now. But Stan, I thank you for what you've done. I talk to people just like you coaches do, and like Martin does, and they are just so thrilled for what you do for the kids in this parish, and you have become a legend, and it's been greatly appreciated. I just wish I'd have had a son that could have got involved with you in the sports world, but it's been a pleasure. I do have one little thing to say though. Stan decided, I think it was 4 years, 5 years ago. I think your parents were having some health issues, so he decided to back away from the Friday night sports. And the football season had been over, and we sat, Bobby Arsenault and I sat with Martin and Stan, and we said, look, if you want, we'll cover the Friday night sports for a few months until Stan gets things settled with his family. So he said, okay, it worked out, you know. So I go to the hospital, and I'm walking down the hall, and I see Stan, and he says, man, Mike, thank you for stepping up and helping me out so I could have a little time away. I think he wanted to get to Houston to see his grandchildren on a long weekend. And I said, man, Stan, I don't know how to do this. I said, can you give me any advice? And he said, no, and he just walked away. So I said, well, thanks a lot. I appreciate that. Stan, I do appreciate everything you've done, and it's, job well done. Thank you, Stan.
I'm going to call somebody up who actually not only started with me in the integral years of HTV, but we grew up together, played sports together. He probably cheated off of me in school for a little bit, but I remember when Harry McCullough was getting selected to the Olympic baseball team, one of the biggest lines his friends would use to the girls out there would be, we could get you an Olympic warm-up suit. And they go, you serious? Yeah, we just have to make one phone call. Then they boycotted. Harry made the Olympic baseball team, and it got boycotted in Moscow, right? Got boycotted because we were at Oz in Moscow. But I'm going to bring Harry up to say a few words.
I feel like I'm about to do karaoke up here. But anyway, yeah, piano man, Jason, please. No, I tell you what, I'll go back and we'll do more broadcast stuff. But when I got finished playing baseball and got into broadcast, and obviously it started with Martin, we were down the road a little bit, and we were just starting news right when we started. That was like 1985. I got out of baseball in 87. I got to go to KATC. I was doing an internship there at KATC on weekends there. And I still had a year and a half of school, so I was going to school at LSU, drive over to Lafayette at night, and doing an internship. Well, the guy, Rick Renner, who a lot of y'all went to Sports Southwest with Fox, he left. He was the weekend guy, went to Alexandria. And so they said, why don't you take the job? So I still got 2 years of school out. And they're like, we don't care. And that's basically TV. We don't care. Just go ahead and take it. They offered me $1,000 a month, and I was glad to have it. But anyway, so I started Friday Night Sports in Lafayette. That was 1989. That's when we started. They were like, hey, why don't we do something with football? So we just started doing that. They give us 6 photographers. They're like, everybody go get 2 or 3 games, come back, and we'll have 15, 18 games. Then we talked with Martin, and we decided, hey, why don't we do that locally? So we came back, and when I came back to home in 2003, that was one of the things we did, was start that program. And so we'd have some coaches. I know Bokeh come by, and Coach Sterling, Coach Curlin. And we'd have the guys. We were doing it at night. We'd have the coaches come in after the game, and that's how it kind of all started here. So that was kind of our baby when we started. But yeah, like I said, with Hillary afterward, and you guys, y'all really did a job of really growing that thing and making it a community asset that this community needed, and really it is an asset to our community. So I appreciate you taking it over and making it in good hands and moving it on. And like I say, a guy that comes from New Orleans, comes back to home, and you go, oh, these guys at home. I got to say, when I watch Stan do the show, when I watch you do anything, I'm going, that dude's not even he's not reading off a teleprompter. He just knows all these names. He knows all these people. And, man, you do a fine job with that, too. So thanks for being a great part of our community and helping old Martin out here with HTV. So.
You never thanked me for saving your life in Tampa. Let's see. Bobby Arsenault? Come on, Bobby. You got a few words in you? And Richard, I see Richard out there. Anybody else, just come on up, Coach. We'll get you up here. All right.
All right. First, I want to defend myself on this phone in the press box. See, this is before the day when you can go online and get the scores, you know. So I prided myself on getting scores around the state to our people who were listening. So I would find out where all the locals were playing. I'd call somebody who was at the game, say, call me the scores every quarter. So I thought that was pretty neat. I can give the scores out. This is before you went on your phone and got all this stuff, you know. So, man, I said, man, I'm giving scores out, and people say, how you getting these scores? I can't tell you, man. It's, you know, I just got people, you know. So anyway, that's why I was on the phone all the time. Now we just look on the phone and get the scores. Yeah, one of my boys from St. Bernard, you know. But anyway, talking about Stan, you're right, one of the most organized guys I've been with. I've done some shows with him in the morning. When here we took a little break, we did the shows at the Downtown Joe's. And every Thursday, I get the whole script, what we're going to talk about, what time you're coming on, who's coming on. At 8:15, be off. Next guy's coming on at 8:17. I mean, it was like, it's unbelievable how organized it was. But I see another side of him this year. The Hall of Fame banquet, which is unbelievable. Stan does an unbelievable job with that. Well, I walk in his office one day, and he's, I can't believe this. I don't know about this. This ain't working. I don't know. I might give this up. I said, well, hold up, man. What's wrong? He goes, oh, this one can't get this one to talk. This, not get in contact with this one. I said, Stan, you know, at the end of the day, it's going to be a great banquet like it always is. You know, it's like the duck. You know, the duck's on the pond, the feet are flying, you know. Well, that's how he was, you know. But, you know, he always was worried about everything, which is good. But he's worried about every little thing detailed for the Hall of Fame banquet. And at the end of the night, it just all falls into place. Nobody else knows what happened behind the scenes, but it all falls back into place. It's a great event that he started, and you know, with the hospital and all. So, just to let you know, he does get a little aggravated every now and then, believe me. But no, Stan, you know, all the times we worked together and everything, man, what a pleasure. I enjoy whenever you call me to work with you and stuff like that, because I know all I got to do is just show up, and you're gonna have everything ready to go, and everything works like clockwork. So thanks for everything.
Stan, why don't you open the big gift, because I'm going to start, that involves everybody in here, because I want them to do a little something with it. And then I'll say a few more. Raise your hands out there, too, if you want to come say a few words, too. Okay. All right, so what we're going to do, we're going to pass that around, and I want everybody to write. We have a Sharpie. I want to pass it around the room, and y'all write a little something for Stan, because I want that to hang in his office so that he will understand how well appreciated he was. Now, we probably should have put, I did have different things, but I couldn't fit everything in the case, so the basketball is the biggest thing we could sign.
I come from the South Terrebonne connection, but 6 months into my tenure there, I took a different detour and wound up going and running the detention center for many, many years. And no, Stan was not one of my clients there. I was his probation officer, though, prior to him being a coach. Louis Pasteur, I'm going to comment and wrap up on some of the things a lot of you have said that chance favors the prepared. And the thing I think that you heard mentioned throughout the common theme of some of the things that were said tonight, Stan, was how you prepared. You prepared for the craft regardless of what it was, whether it was doing art at South Terrebonne, coaching baseball, HTV, DGMC, the preparation. Stan's gifted. He's got a 1 terabyte memory and a Pentium 11 processor. But you did witness a miracle tonight. For the first time in my life, he couldn't tell you who the Crowley quarterback was when they were trying to figure it out. That is a miracle. But the thing I appreciate, now I never told you this story, but you know when I went to ST, it was my hope to coach the baseball team? Yes, sir. I got to play under Dickie Pierce back in the day. Yeah, amen. And it was my hope to work with you to do that as the time came. And I'd already started talking to Mr. Pico about it, but obviously that detour came, and the rest is history. But we have reconnected again. I'm now the principal at a school that in his TGMC crew serves our staff and our players with the health care that they get. But the biggest thing is I want to thank you for your showing all of us. And I wish we had some young coaches here tonight about the craft, about being prepared and paying your dues and doing the things you need to do. So whatever you're going to do, I know you're going to probably research one day on how to be retired, but the point is that you'll do well at it, and we appreciate that. And that's what I've always appreciated about you. It's just the way you approach things and your professionalism. Thank you.
Coach, you want to come on up?
I'm nothing as good as any of you guys that came up here already, but I just felt like that I couldn't let the night go without saying something. Stan is always known as Coach Gravois, and if you're a coach or you're involved in athletics in any kind of way, you know that it's one big family, you know, and that family stays together no matter what, and it means the world to you when you're like that. And it doesn't, like Coach Curlin said, no matter how many weeks go by, how many months go by, whenever I see him, it's like we were talking the last 2 or 3 days together. It never skips a beat, you know. Talent is there. I mean, it's great. I can remember him taking 2 big sheets off of a bed that was sewn together the year we won the state championship, and with a couple of spray bottles, of spray cans, he painted "Welcome to the Swamp." It was a beautiful scene, and we carried it to every game that we played. They put it across the top of the field house. It even went into the Superdome with us the year we won the state championship. And that banner lasted forever, but he just did it by hand. You know, he'd have been a good graffiti person on the side of buildings and stuff like that. You know, he painted football fields for probably every school in the local area. And he did it by hand. There was no stencils, anything like that for him. But I do have one story that I wanted to mention. I think it's funny. It wasn't funny to him at the time, but I don't know if it was that week that we were playing for the state championship or one of those weeks, no, beginning of the year, and we were getting ready to line up to take a team picture. And we had all the team lined up, all in perfect order and so forth. And I think it was Coach Curlin that told the photographer, look, right before you snap the picture, tell Coach Gravois to suck it in, that his belly's poking out too far. And he got pissed off, I'm telling you. He was mad as hell. And he ended up lowering his belt, poking his belly out, putting some dark sunglasses on, and took a picture just like that to prove to everybody he wasn't going to let that bother him, you know. But that's something I'll never forget. I believe your first stint on the radio was that year we played for the state championship. You and Cousin Eric went on that radio station in New Orleans, and y'all broadcasted off the radio that night. And that was pretty neat. I remember y'all coming back saying how awesome that was. You wish you could have done that. Well, he ended up doing that a lot later. And he also formed the radio station at South Terrebonne High School after that. And it didn't broadcast but about 3 or 4 miles away from the school. But in the morning when you drive into school, you put on the radio station, you heard the kids on there. They had a sports section, a weather section, whatever it was that he did for a long time there. And it was really awesome. I think it was the first high school in Louisiana that had its own broadcasting station. And, you know, he went on and learned more and more and more about it. So I think being on the radio, being on television was one of those bucket list things that you want to do maybe, you know. So I want to thank Stan more than just being a fellow coach and everything. He's also a good friend. So, and wish him the good luck in the future. Thank you.
Like we said, Coach Curlin told you that his name was Earl, and that's the only thing I ever called him my whole life. It was almost like he was Stan so much that Earl was his nickname, so that was the nickname I gave for him. But everything people have said about him is totally 100% accurate. The fact that a guy who hated attention to be brought on him would do what he did, at the level he did at HTV amazes me. That amazes me. The fact that he's prepared, that he's artistic, that he is, I guess, kind of not obsessive, but I mean, he has to have everything right. People don't know that he's a good drummer. Anybody knew he's a drummer? He can play the drums. He can paint anything you want. He designs T-shirts. He helps me with computer stuff, with music stuff, with cartoon, whatever. He knows how to do it, and he always does it perfectly. We have a bunch of stories. I mean, I've been knowing him since my whole life. His daddy and my mom are brother and sister. And so we would always go to their house in Montague for Mardi Gras and things like that, and we'd go and we'd spend a lot of time during the holidays at the house, so we always knew each other. And I remember the first baseball game I ever played in was was at Montague School or whatever, in that big lot or something. And I remember, and I played with all the guys, including, remember, a guy named Stan Gravois, who was a really good baseball player at South Terrebonne. So one of the funniest stories was we had a athletic, I guess what do you call it? The banquet for sports and all that. Well, our girls' basketball team was 0-20, whatever. So I'm sitting there in a suit, and Stan's on the side of me, or Earl's on the side of me, and he just tells me the story because our athletic director at the time was a man named Raymond Taylor, and he had called him the wrong name and all that. So we were chuckling about that. But anyway, the basketball team coach goes up there, and they had lost every game and all of that. And I'm sitting there with Stan, and another coach, Bob Schultz, leans over, and in a redneck kind of accent says, he kind of imitates what Ken Malloy is going to say about the girls' basketball team. He goes, well, Bubba, I got some good news and some bad news. We got a really young team, and they're all coming back. The bad news is they're all coming back. So I'm in a suit sitting there laughing, and I'm biting down on my mouth because these people, the mamas and daddies in the stands, are looking at, look at this maniac is laughing, and he's holding me down and trying to hold it. And I finally composed myself, and then Raymond Taylor comes up, and I just coached with him for 3 years. 1 year I helped him with track. And he comes up to me, and he's about to go up and talk about track, and he taps me on the shoulder and goes, what's your name again? And, and then me and him are laughing like mental patients the rest of the day, and we couldn't stop it and all that, so I was like almost getting like dragged out of the gymnasium. Another thing that was funny was we were 9-0, and we go to play Hornville, and it was the most freezing game you could ever. I mean, it was so cold that night. It was in November of '91. It was the first week, and it was so cold that the coaches all had whichever knit hat on it. Everybody, we all coached with Oakland Raiders hats on because it was so cold. And we had just lost the game, the only game we had lost that year. And he had an old Mazda B210 truck that didn't start half the time. So I'm like, Earl, start the truck. Start the truck. We run into the truck. When we get into the truck, it's so cold outside. I mean, with a truck, it's colder on the inside of that truck than it was on the outside. So he starts it up, puts the heat on, and finally about halfway back to home, we warm up, and we're like, damn, we just lost that game, and I was more worried about freezing to death. But he's actually the guy that hired me because I had left for Million Catholic, and I was just going to work with my daddy and my brother and all of them. And he said, oh, man, we can use you over here, and I kind of talked about it. And we went to a place called Highway 24 Restaurant. And he said, oh, you got the job if you want. So I was going to go meet the new head coach. His name was Richard Curlin. And I walk in there, and this giant of a man comes in, and he's got crackers, and he's taking Tabasco, and he's just dumping a whole bottle of Tabasco on his crackers, eating. I'm like, I don't know if I really want to come here to South Terrebonne. But no, everything you hear about him is 100% correct. He'll help you with anything you need. He helps you. If he can't help you right away, he will always get back to you. And I mean, the proof is in the pudding. I mean, he's been a successful coach. He's been a successful radio personality, for lack of a better term. He's at the hospital in management. He's an artist, and I mean, he was a good teacher. And I hope you stay around and do things for 20 or 30 more years. I'll have along. And his daddy's birthday is the same day as his, which is a weird fact. Thank you.
All right, Richard, come on up.
My name's Richard Watkins, and I'm not a high school coach. Most of my professional life was spent in Arizona, but you come to these events not knowing what to expect, and I didn't expect that I would get some kind of resolution to the PTSD that Stan caused me from you coaches. It was so good to hear the stories, from you coaches about his preparation, his attention to detail. I've been doing radio with Hillary Domang, who's probably been doing radio for 40 years. I'm 63, so maybe a long, long time. I lived in Arizona. I would call in, and Hillary, being the professional that he is, I would just come on, and he would kind of direct me and guide me the way to go. We'd talk about what we wanted to talk about, and it was always fun, and I enjoyed it. So then I finally moved back to Houma and started doing radio with Hillary here, and that's when I met Stan Gravois, who does an amazing job with TGMC, Community Sports Institute. And so I get doing the show with Hillary, and I'm not sure even what happened, but I think Hillary either took a sabbatical or he went on a 6-month cruise to the Bahamas. Whatever reason he was leaving, Stan was going to take over the radio show, which was, and Bobby touched upon this himself. So Stan asked me, Richard, will you still stay on? And I loved doing it with Hillary. It was easy. I would call in. We would the conversation where he would guide us. We kind of talk whatever we want. And Stan said, well, I'm going to do it a little differently, that way. I said, that's no problem. I'm not concerned about that. And then prior to the first show, I get an email with at least a 2-page document that constructs minute by minute what we're going to do on the show, including studio banding with Mike, Richard takes a break, all the detail throughout the entire thing. But the beautiful part about what happened with the show with Stan is we'd get on the show and then it kind of took its own direction anyway. It never did that. But the reason why I wanted to get up here, I haven't known Stan like you guys all my life, but I've met Stan. And if we could get more people with the grace, the humility, and just a true Southern gentleman like Stan Gravois, who's just a gem of Terrebonne Parish, we'll all be better off for it. And I'm better off for knowing him and spending some time with him. So Stan, congratulations. Have a wonderful evening. Thanks, Martin, for hosting this, and I think we're all better off for knowing Stan Gravois. Thank you.
JT, AD. A little rhyme with that.
Yeah, it is. JT the AD. Phil, I just want to say, Stan, I can talk about, our days at Vanderbilt Catholic, and, they said it best. We used to get up, we used to hurry up and go watch Friday Night Football. So it's just amazing. But I talk about the fact that you're a good human being. I mean, just a great person. And so, when you think about who Stan Gravois is, that's the one thing that everybody should know and understand. I can remember my first day as accepting the job as the athletic director, and you coming in and us sitting on Coach's couch because he was gone, and he let me use his office because I didn't have one. And so just the fact that, to be so prepared to ask me questions as a newbie in a field that was so crazy at a time of COVID. And so I just appreciate you for who you are, and wish you the best, and thanks. Yep.
Stan, you could open up your second present. Because I think you just said you were leaving Friday Night Sports, right? I think so. I think that's all you said, huh? Yeah. He's on the funny side of the family, huh? See, you got luck. And you could tell it's new because it still has the wrappers on the zippers, which first time I wore it out to Cristiano's the other night, some lady came up to me and said, you might want to take those white things off your zipper. Come on, Coach Barber.
I'm not going to talk about Brother Martin.
I'm one of the old guys that haven't left South Terrebonne, another one of them. But, what people haven't talked about tonight is, with Stan, it's not all football. He may have started and the show may have been about football in the beginning, but I've watched many times on Friday and Saturday nights, and he does just a great a job with basketball, baseball, track and field. I'm a track coach, and what he's done for us and helped us out over the years with track has been phenomenal. Thank you. Just like everybody said up here, we're friends, and I think it's great that Martin has done this for you. It's an honor for you, and it's an honor to be your friend and for what you have done. And don't stop, with Terrebonne General helping us out. No, it's more than football, and I'm sitting over there and I listen to it, and it's all fun and games, but you've done just as great a job with every sport and every school. South Terrebonne's here today, and we got other people from Vanderbilt and Terrebonne and HL and Randy at CCA, but he's done just as great a job with every school, and talked about the Thibodeaux and the Edie Whites and everything else. He's truly a community person and a class. There's nothing else to say. Thank you, Stan.
I think before we bring Stan up here to say a few words, I think Coach Barber reminded me of something. I was visiting Dr. Jerry Haydell the other day, and of course he's getting up there in age, but he says he's been watching HTV a lot. He's always watched HTV, and one of the best compliments that he gave me, he started naming some of the hosts. He said, "Yeah, I watched that Keith guy a lot, And over the years, I've heard about Harry. I've heard about anybody who's come on. I've heard a lot about Stan. Is when somebody comes up to me as an owner and says, "That guy really does you well." That means so much to me as an owner, because we trust that whoever we put on the air is going to be the person that really brings it to the next level. And I remember interviewing Skip Burtman one time, and I always wondered how Skip Burtman would be moving from a head coach to an athletic director. And he switched gears. He started taking pride in, you want to make sure the next person you bring up there to represent your company or your university or whatever represents it. So I think that's what was established at HTV. And before I bring Stan on, I want to also thank Joni and Darla in the other room. And Joni's been with me a long, long time. And it's about, you coaches know it's about the people you surround yourself with. And we got some great people around here. I also want to thank Jason. He's on that camera right there. He's been with me a long time. Richard's up here tonight on camera 5. It's labeled. I got Dwayne, who started with me years ago, and he went on to do some big and better things, but guess where he came back? HTV. We appreciate Dwayne being back here. I got my young nephew, Dominic, who hadn't even turned 16 years old yet. Look at him on that camera right there. And then in the back, by the light, we have Jen back there. So this was a 5-camera shoot. And the reason I'm saying that is because to get high school sports and to get all of these things that take a lot of legwork to get, takes all these people. We have to have video to show highlights. So it takes a lot of people working to get you that. And the organization that, one thing I gotta say, when I leave HTV and I go do different things and I'm selling advertising or whatever, I know that Joni and Darla, they got it going on. So I don't have to second guess or worry about it. They do it, and they do it right. And one thing I never had to worry about is the talent. I mean, when these guys get on TV, and when Stan got on TV all these years, I didn't have to worry about what the hell is he going to say. He did a great job for us. He really did. So we've been talking about Stan, but we're going to give Stan a little chance to talk about what he thinks about all this. So Stan, come on up.
So I did not know the format of what was going on tonight. Martin, I'm so deeply appreciative. I don't know that I have the words to even talk. I would say this, I sort of feel silly because I don't have the means to do this. You've afforded me the means to thank everybody who did this. You afforded me the means, you know, for the guys from South Terrebonne who, I think Richard hit it on the head. We don't see each other as much as we used to, but there was a bond there that's never gonna go away. That no other coaching staff, Percy, I don't care how much you tell me I'm a South Terrebonne homer when I say this. You could ask any staff in Terrebonne Parish, St. Mary, Assumption, who do they want to be like? They wanted to be like us at South Terrebonne when we went our heyday. Guys who stayed there, who enjoyed each other, and I appreciate that so much. To work with my cousin, who, if anybody's ever been around he and I together, you will laugh till you drop. It's mostly because of him. And I want to share this too real quick. So I think what turned me on to sports is a couple of things. I actually thought about this when I was down there. My family's a sugarcane farming family. My idols are my 4 sisters and my 2 brothers and my mother and father, who are both 98 and they're still living in Napoleonville. That's it. That's my idols. My family is my idols. And when I was a kid, my 2 brothers are more farmers. They could fix anything that's got 4 wheels, 2 wheels, or whatever. Maybe not so much in the sports realm, although my brother a year younger than me, I think could have been one heck of a football player. But when you go into South Terrebonne High School back in the day and you're graduating 575 people a year, it's tough to even make the football team when Skippy Ezel's your quarterback and Lionel's out there and those guys. That being said, so it got to be a thing where I think sports came into my life because, one, my dad would be in the sugarcane field every Saturday. And he was a Tulane fan. He loved LSU, but he loved Tulane. And that's where I got my appreciation for pulling for all state schools. I want all state schools to win. If Nichols is playing, I want Nichols to beat everybody. And that's the truth. And I'll tell you why in just a sec, because I didn't go to Nichols. I didn't have that allegiance to Nichols early on. I think Matthew, my godson, and I have an allegiance with that because he didn't either, and if there's a bigger Nichols fan now in the world, I don't know who it is. That being said, so what happens is we're in the cane field and Tulane's playing, and Mike Walker, who worked for Eric and Al at Conoco, Mike Walker's a quarterback, and all my dad would keep on saying is that guy's from Houma. He went to Terrebonne High School, and it resonated with me. And Mike, I can remember listening to them play William and Mary in like 1970, and it resonated with me, right? And then a couple of years later, I go to a Nichols game because my sister is on the homecoming court for Nichols when they first started football with Bill Clemens. And I'm sitting in the stands, and all I hear is, "Give it to Leroy." And the guy's name was Leroy Simmons, who ironically went to South Terrebonne. And I'm going, this is kind of cool, And then his brother, Al, who was a terrific football player at Holy Cross, my dad would find the station that picked up the Catholic League out in New Orleans to listen to his nephew, Al, who was a linebacker for Holy Cross, and how they were doing. And I think it just formulated things, you know, and then all of a sudden you become this kind of sports guy, right? So fast forward, I go to South Terrebonne. I'm so fortunate. I'm there with the greatest athletes in the world. Like I mentioned, Skippy, who's a friend now. You know, we're friends more now than we were actually back then, because Skippy was so great back then. It was, you know, but one guy he mentioned, Stan Gravois, was very close. I grew up in Montague, Louisiana, right? My mom and dad were not from here. My mom is from Lafayette. My dad is from St. James, Blackberry to be exact. And they moved to Montague. I'm a Gravois in Montague. Like, that's Heberts and LaBeoufs, man. That ain't Gravois. Gravois in Vacherie and Thibodeau, right? So it was a little different. Used to catch a bus to go to St. Francis, and we transferred 3 times. South Terrebonne, Mechanicville Elementary, and Honduras to get to St. Francis in the morning, because my mom and dad wanted us to have Catholicism. So it was an interesting time. That being said, the reason I went to USL, I was a junior in high school. I was a mediocre baseball player. By the way, when we played Harry McCullough when he was a senior, Vanderbilt beat us 18-2. I'll never forget that. And you actually pitched. And I didn't. So, yeah, I scored one of those. Anyway, Stan Gravois was a terrific athlete from Montague. We had a great, this is Montague, Louisiana, where you had Tommy Boudreaux, who played for LSU, Rusty LaBeouf, who was a great player at Nicholls State University, you know, Kevin Belanger, who now runs SCSA. I mean, it was a great little community. I can't speak for it now. I haven't been there in a while, but I got a letter when I was a junior in high school. I had a really good game. I was a baseball guy, and the letter was from USL. I don't know if you remember this name, because I know you went to USL a little while, Don Lockwood. And he coached football and baseball on the collegiate level. And it was, Stan, what a great game. You had 3 hits. Way to go, blah, blah, blah. And I got that letter. I thought I was signing the USL. And I was a mediocre baseball player. I was running the mill, you know. And boy, I'm going to USL. Well, obviously, when I became a senior, I told everybody I was going to USL, so I had to live up to that, not necessarily to play baseball or anything. It was about 3 years later that I realized that letter probably was supposed to go to Stan Gravois. So there you go. Did not want to be a coach at all. And just quickly, so that some of you guys, especially my good friends at, you know, in the back, we talk about Joe's Coffee Shop. I love Friday mornings, man. That's absolutely great. I didn't want to be I wanted to be in New York or Houston, and I wanted to be in an advertising agency doing artwork. I still have a passion for art. You could sit there and drink beer all day, and that's a great hobby. I could kind of sit in front of a computer and create. I think we had the best logos in the middle of our field at South Terrebonne than ever. And then a good friend of mine, and I know you guys can relate, he's not there anymore, but Seth Thibodeau used to call me to paint a big N in the middle of the outfield for baseball. I loved it. I loved doing things like that. So I was going somewhere else. Dickie Pierce gave me a call. Dickie Pierce wanted me to go coach baseball with him because I had played. So I went to South Terrebonne, sight unseen, didn't even apply for a job, never wanted to be a teacher or a coach. But hey, coaching baseball, that's got to be pretty cool. So I went over there, and Dickie, I don't know if he had this in his mind or not, asked me to go to football practice. Now, although I did play a little football at South Terrebonne, when I say a little, after you know, Skippy throws the ball so hard through your hands, you want to just stop being a receiver. He gets me to go with him, and he was coaching the receivers, and asked me to throw the routes to them while we're going through drills. And a guy named Terry Prejean, and this was before I think we became the team, you know, because that was a little different with Terry. Terry saw me and put me to the side, and he says, I see the way you throw the ball and stuff. Why don't you be on this staff? And I said, I don't know about football that much. No, I'm a baseball guy. And it went from there where I became very interested because Terry said, you know, maybe you can do that. Well, Dickie didn't make it till the start of that year. He actually went with Mike Knight to become Mike Knight's graduate assistant at like 50-something years old. So I take off with football, and I'm learning things, and I'm going, wait a minute, high school sports is something different. And then I went into, this is vivid to me, I went into the Xerox room to make a copy of something. And I know this is maybe going to air, and I'm not saying anything bad about her because I loved her and I think she's a wonderful teacher. But the guys, whoever had been around South Terrebonne, her name was Pauline Fleming. She was a terrific English teacher. She was in the copy room, and she was mad at an athlete, and she thought that athletics got too much. I can't believe this. We ought to be about academics. It's, nothing about athletics and stuff. And I said, well, hold on, Pauline. That's not true. I never called her Pauline. I was scared of her. I called her Miss Fleming. I said, hold on, Miss Fleming. I said, so if you're talking about Johnny and you're thinking about running him off the football team or the baseball team or the basketball team, what good does that do you at all? I said, second, and I'm still going to have this fight till the day I die. We used to, especially when Tim and Chipper Simon and those guys were there, we revered what was going on the river. That's when it kind of started with Hornville. Because when I first got to South Terrebonne, we would sort of beat Hornville like a drum. And then it kind of took off, and Destrehan started moving up in class, And we said, we got to be like that. And then all of a sudden, you would go there and you would see the facilities. I don't think facilities happen just to happen. I think you got to make it happen. So that being said, I started realizing that all this athletic stuff was more than just about what happened on the field. 1991, South Terrebonne was a better place. The kids got along great. Everybody loved each other from the first day. Diversity was not an issue whatsoever. Our standardized scores were better. Everything was better. I'm not saying you're going to go out and win a state championship every year. But if you do that right, it sets the tone. It gives you a platform. Nicholls State University, I don't care what anybody says, is a better place because of guys sitting in this room right now. That's a fact. Now, when I talk about Nicholls State and how I got this job, Hillary is correct. He called me, I think it was 2005. I had just finished being Randy's assistant at HL. I don't know what, a consultant. And listen, Randy and them won 2 district championships. It was maybe the best. And you're talking about guys like Don Schwab and Steve Corvetto, who did a good job, but Randy brought them to another level, and I kind of said, my job here is done. And I get a call from Hillary, and he says, hey, you want to do this? And he introduces me to Mike Benora, which, thank you for that, Hillary, because if y'all ever met Mike Benora, he's something else. And we start doing this 3 games into that year, and I don't know what I'm doing. I'm still calling guys 3 texts, and he's not making his first right step, and what's wrong with that guy's hand placement? And Mike's telling me at the break, dude, you're talking about to people from Montague who just want to know if they gained 3 yards or not, So I learned my lesson a little bit. Nonetheless, and Martin may not know this, I get a call from Joe McCann. And Joe McCann says, hey, Stan, and I knew of Joe, but I didn't know him well. And some of you, I'm not sure if Harry was the sports director or Joe was. Oh, I don't know what was. So Joe says, can you come on Friday Night Sports with me and just kind of be an analyst? I said, no, I don't do that. And he says, really? He says, it's nothing. We're just going to go and do this. You just got to sit there. And when I talk about Patterson against E.D. White, you chime in. And I went home and I told him no. And I went home and I told my wife. And she said, well, I don't understand. You just got out of coaching. You said how much you were going to miss that camaraderie of coaching and stuff. And here's your opportunity. Why don't you do it? And I said, no, I was intimidated. I knew Harry worked here. I knew Harry from WGNO. I have ties to Lafayette. I knew Harry was working there. I'm like, I don't do that. That's what those guys, she said, go do it. You don't like it, you didn't sign a contract, quit. Go home, do whatever. I went on with Joe. Joe was very inviting, and I did it a few times, and I felt really good. We finished off the year. By the way, my best story that year is Joe, the reason I said Patterson and E.D. White, that's who it was. Patterson and E.D. White had played each other when we were going over the highlights. And Joe never took the time to tell me that, you only have 30 seconds, and when that clock runs out, you're finished. So I started talking about the quarterback from Patterson and how he did this and he did this. And Joe's just looking at me smiling. We went a commercial break. He let me do that the whole commercial break till we came out the commercial break. That year ends, the next year comes up, and that's the year where it really happened. I got a call from Martin. Martin called me. He ain't going to remember this. And he says, hey, I need you to drive that show. I said, drive that show? What does that mean? He said, drive it, take it over, do it. You could do that. No, Martin, I could sit there and say that quarterback didn't use the right technique on this. I couldn't drive a show. He said, call whoever you want if you want to guess or whatever. And believe it or not, I know he won't remember it. Steve was the first person I ever had on when I did that way back when. Steve came on with me. And it helped to ease it. That's when I took over. That is the year that two things happened where at the end of that year, I thought about giving it up again. One was about 3 weeks after that, and I'm very new, David McCormick keeps on calling me on my cell phone, and I didn't know to turn my cell phone off. And the whole night, my cell phone's ringing, and I wasn't smart enough to turn it off. I am so appreciative. For me to sit up here and to hear that was, I didn't expect that tonight. Brett, who is, you know, a guy I lean on at work a lot, we were talking about it, and he said, what's tonight going to be like? And I said, I don't know. I know I get a steak, but yeah, I don't know. And it's very nice, very nice. I am so, to meet all of you guys that I have along the way. I have my job at Terrebonne General Medical Center, Terrebonne General Health System, because of, and everybody in here, truly, it's a domino effect. I can remember being called for it by Mike Fake, and he said, hey, Phyllis Peoples wants to talk to you. Who's Phyllis Peoples? She's the CEO of Terrebonne General. Okay. It doesn't hurt to talk to her. I said, about what? I thought they wanted me to do a logo. I truly did that. I thought they wanted me to do a logo. And when I went in, she started talking about her vision and stuff. I told her no like 3 times, and she was very persistent, because I was at 29 years. Think about that, guys. I'm at 29 years when I left instead of 30. And the guys, we went, Richard's father had passed away, and we were driving up to Minden in a van. Now, I talked to my wife about this a little bit, but all those guys from South Terrebonne who are here were in that van going, Richard wasn't, obviously. Richard was already in Minden. And I turned to them, and I said, I got the strangest call, and I went in and met, what do y'all think? And I leaned on them a lot to that. To think that I still get to be around sports and get to go visit y'all from time to time. I wish y'all quit asking me for things all the time, but I enjoy it immensely. And finally, when it comes to Nichols, I did tell, I remember saying this to Martin. He said, I need you to drive that show, whatever, and then I kind of took it, and then a little bit later, he was like, how's it going with all of that? I said, I'll do that if you allow me 2 things. To promote high school sports and to promote Nichols State University. And he said, well, absolutely, you know, being a Nichols alum and everything. And he said, Nichols, you know, I know you're not a Nichols guy. I'm going to tell you what did it for me for Nichols. This is weird, but this will teach you a life lesson with kids. Jay Thomas was a head football coach. Evidently, on one of the Friday night sports, I said something about Nichols, and I think I got on my soapbox like I do with Hillary sometimes. Sorry, Hillary. And I said, you need to go support Nichols. You need to get off your butt if you live in Thibodaux, Oklahoma, and you need to go support Nichols. And I did this. 3 days later, in the mail, I got a visor from Nichols State University from Jay Thomas with a note. That was his last year, too. He was kind of getting run off at the time. And he said, thank you so much for being a supporter of what we do, and it's a community school that deserves support and all this stuff. And I said, he's right. I don't know that I have the means living in Terrebonne to do what Matt and you guys have done with Nichols, but that was important to me. So Jay Thomas is the one who did it. And then Chip Durham and Seth kind of followed up after that. And then when I'm finding out that, you know, man, JT might be the athletic director and stuff, and what Tim has done there, it's so important for Nichols to be vital in our community. Because if it's not, it's a different kind of community. And I might take a lot of heat for saying it, but it happens on the playing field. And that's where a lot of people and that's what I learned from Pauline Fleming in that Xerox room that day, that it all goes back to that. So I don't want to keep y'all here a lot longer. I appreciate you all being here. I did not expect this. You don't know what it means to me. It means a ton. Martin, I can't thank you. It has been a pleasure. He's always let me do, you guys know that, whenever they say, what do you have to do at HTV? Is it this, is it that? The hardest thing for me was it's a Friday night sports show. And obviously, if you want to do it right, it's on Friday nights. And, you know, my wife and my 2 children who are my life and I have 5 grandbabies now, little ones, you know, it's time. And that's what that. Now, if you have anybody young, so I'm going to make a plea to everybody out there, I'm ready to work with them in any way I can. Anything that it would take to keep this promotion going. Anytime I could say something. I don't want it to be like it's my funeral and I'm not supporting high school sports anymore, because I definitely am. Friday nights, you know, it got kind of tough. There was one year, around 2013, every single Friday night that year, which was 52 Friday nights while you were out doing what you're doing right now, you know, but it was okay. I don't mean to complain about it. Martin always let me do it the right way. And if we could tape, but to do Nicholls State University justice, to do Mike Barber's baseball team that just won a playoff game on Friday afternoon justice, you had to do the show live that night to get that out to the people. So I'm making a plea. If you got somebody young out there that you know, a nephew, a niece, whoever who enjoys things like this, let's get them. Let's start training them, man, because we need to. It's a little bit of a different world. So again, thank you all very, very much. It means a ton to me.
Did everybody sign the basketball? If we could make it, yeah, if we could get it back up here, that'd be great. I want to amplify the fact that so many kids, and a lot of them are going to be watching this show, got publicity. A lot of high school kids never make it to college. Or we think we are it when we're in high school, but you never get past high school. And when you think back at a publicity, to this day, we still get calls. Hey, can you dig up that 1989 game or that 1992 game or whatever? So it makes a huge impact on kids when they're going through the system. And, you know, Stan deserves a big amount of credit for that. Hillary over the years, Harry, mentioned Joe McCann. I know I'm forgetting some people. Bobby Arsenault, Mike Fake tuned in for a while. But Stan's right. To do that, it takes a lot of energy, takes a lot of equipment, it takes a lot of wanting to do it. Stan, thank you very much. Mingle time, we appreciate what you've done. We love you. And hope you can hang that in a good spot in your office. And we gave you the shirt because we know we're going to see you on Sports on the Bayou. You just retired from Friday Night Sports. We're going to see you on other things. Thank you all for coming.